Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Young cattle producers are charting the course for the future of the beef industry. We'll discuss the challenges and opportunities facing the next generation and how they're stepping up as leaders on a state and national basis.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. The long-term sustainability of the beef industry is going to depend on the vision and ultimate success of the next generation. So how do we ensure younger farmers and ranchers not only have an opportunity to raise cattle, but the resources and support necessary to make a living? Fortunately, we've got a talented group of young professionals here to share some of the issues they face getting started in the business and how they've overcome those challenges. Jack Cowan is from Texas. Jack, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Kevin. My family and I own and operate Cowan Cattle Company in Williamson Ranch, headquartered in Benjamin, Texas. We're a diversified operation. We run cow-calf, but we're primarily focused on the stocker business. We grow a lot of winter wheat to graze cattle on, and for grain production, we operate a grow yard for backgrounding and weaning cattle, and then we retain ownership on most of those calves through feed yards in the panhandle of Texas.
Outstanding. And Stephanie Teskey comes to us from Arizona. Give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm from the Dugas Ranch. I'm a sixth-generation rancher from that area. My family and I still operate the business, my dad and I primarily. We have a commercial cow-calf operation, and I started a small direct-to-consumer beef program as well.
Outstanding. And Quentin Daly comes to us from Nebraska. Quentin,
yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about your operation.
Yeah, Kevin, I come from Lexington, Nebraska. I would consider myself second generation, kind of a new business deal with my dad, and it was started with him and his best friend years ago. They had day jobs, and I kind of came into this role as wanting to do more with the operation out of college, and we were able to do that by me coming back and being there as that day-to-day guy.
I'm sure there's lots of folks your age and younger that are watching this show, and we all face very different challenges getting started. I'm just curious, Quentin, let's start with you. What are some of the challenges you experienced as you established your business, and how did you overcome those?
You know, I'd say some of the biggest challenges at this point that, as most operations have figured out, weather and markets are huge. Me as being very young in this, haven't seen a whole lot for, several decades. Those are the biggest things and how you work through those. And then also working with family and where you fit into that role. Because ultimately they still have control. Sure. And so what can you do and how do you work together? Those are big obstacles as a young producer coming in.
Any reflections on what worked for you in managing any of those?
Patience.
That's good.
Patience. Yeah. Try to come up with some ideas that might help. It might take some time to maybe get some of those ideas across and worked out. Changes aren't going to happen overnight. I'm very fortunate that my father is open to change and often is thinking of ways to change himself and with the operation. Not stuck in old ways. So that's helped a lot. So if you can just be thinking of things, but be patient, it's going to take time to change. And as I mentioned, we are kind of a young, we're not sixth generation or anything like that. I'm second. So there's a lot of growing and figuring out what does work. There's not that long, deep establishment.
Yeah. So let's talk about a long-term sixth-generation operation. And some people look at that and say, wow, I wish I could come from that kind of heritage. But there are challenges involved when you have a multi-generational operation. Tell us more about those, Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up on the ranch. I've lived and breathed ranching my whole life. But as a relatively small operation in Arizona, there's not room for income for multiple families. So being able to look at different career opportunities that were going to allow me to stay on the ranch. And I think that ultimately was a great opportunity for me because I could still run the ranch, but I worked for the Arizona Department of Agriculture, for the brand department, and I've transitioned to other industry roles as well with AgriWeb. And what that's allowed me to do is see how other operations are doing it. I've got to talk to a lot of ranchers and see how they're planning with family operations, and I've been able to bring that back to the ranch. And so this work from home opportunity that I have to be on the operation and still run things with my dad full time, but also kind of have that national lens on, we're not the only ones with these struggles, and I can come with some new, fresh ideas to how better the operation.
So it's not just the added income, it's that added expertise you're gaining by getting out, getting exposed to other operations that are equally as beneficial, it sounds like. Jack, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, sure. So we're in the, my generation is fourth generation on the ranch, and as we've transitioned from through each generation, it has meant changes. Each succession has meant changes for the operation. And after I finished college, I did spend some time away from the ranch, and our business has really changed to enable me to be able to bring my family back to the ranch. But it's been a real blessing to get to be there with my family, work closely with my brother, and my parents are also on the ranch. But it's been a lot of hard work to grow that to where it can sustain multiple families. But it's also really rewarding, and we're really proud of that.
That's great. Well, I'm curious, what's your best piece of advice to somebody who's starting out? Stephanie, let's start with you. Go back 5 or 10 years, what advice do you give your younger self or to someone else in those shoes?
Yeah, I think the best advice I can give is enjoy the lifestyle of it. You know, take the time and realize that you get to ranch. It's not that you have to, and being able to appreciate that for what it is and just have some patience and grace. If I look back on, a lot of people say, well, Grandpa's stuck in his ways, and in ways they are, but talking to my grandpa about where the ranch started out, driving cattle all the way to the railroad instead of loading them on the truck, there's a lot of progression there as well. So seeing that journey takes a long time, maybe 6 generations, but we're all moving kind of at the same pace.
That's great. Jack, what would you say?
Well, I would say that this industry has to be one of the most collaborative industries out there, and not to be afraid to ask for help, to ask questions, to try to go out there and learn. And if you will go and ask people, they will help you. And it is amazing. You cannot overstate the value of close relationships, mentorships, and partnerships throughout the industry, and what those can bring to your business.
I tell my son that all the time, that if you're humble and have a learning spirit, lots of people in our industry will step up and help you. That's great. Quentin?
It's something a little different than what they hit on. I would say look for something that might set you apart in the industry. Everybody's ultimately kind of doing the same, but finds that little niche that might set you apart, maybe give you an advantage. And as mentioned earlier, be patient. It's not a rapid change with things you're trying to do, but find something that might set you apart that you can maybe work into your operation.
I'm enjoying this conversation. I bet our viewers are too. When we come back, our panel will discuss the benefits of getting involved with both your state and national cattle organizations. Stay with us.
You always know where this one is. But what about this one? Or this one? Imagine knowing your machines the way you know your cattle, where they are and what they need. Data like that could make a difference. You can make better decisions for more efficiency, consistency, productivity. That's the power of technology. Get started with Operations Center today.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest and largest national cattle industry organization working to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus big discounts only for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
We're back now with our panel of young beef producers, and one of the reasons we have you three on the show is you're not only doing a wonderful job building your own operations, but you're committed to being involved in the industry. And I guess the first question I would ask for you or ask of you is simply tell us a little bit about the impact you've had on the industry at large or your local community as a beef producer. Quentin?
Well, impact is just getting involved. It's easy to sit at home. We're busy. We've all got kids, very busy with those, but you've got to get involved in what you're doing. I wouldn't say I've had a major impact in the industry. I can't speak to that, but I'm involved, not only on the industry side, but in the community. Get involved in your community. You know, we see a lot of things today where it's easy to stay at home, but go get involved in the things going on in town. Be a person of that community. I would say that's extremely important as you're a young person going back, finding what you're going to be doing. Get involved. Push yourself to be involved.
That's good. Stephanie?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be involved in industry, but it's also important to look at other avenues that you can be involved. And so myself, for example, I've participated in programs that aren't necessarily agricultural based, that are leadership programs, so that I can communicate with those more, less rural people that don't have the rancher friends to talk to. I think we get so tunnel vision talking to peers that are like-minded, and so I try to seek out opportunities for me to bring agriculture to the city and talk about those issues that we have and bring some light to that. COVID was a great example, seeing all of the negative impacts of recreation on public lands. This was largely something that my friends in the city had no idea what was actually going on our operations. And so being able to shed light on that and bring it full circle, and we're all on the same team, was helpful for the industry, and I thought was impactful.
Jack, what would you say?
Well, I certainly agree with what Quentin and Stephanie said. That's also important to us, both involvement in trade associations and organizations, but also in our community. We try to be supportive in multiple ways, whether that's through having people on the school board or our water board, or involvement in volunteer fire department, or supporting those organizations, especially in a very rural community where there really aren't a lot of us. It's important to work together to try to help everybody.
That's great. And let me come back to you and ask the next question, which is about organizational involvement. I know each of you have been actively involved in formal organizations, including NCBA and your participation in YCC. Tell us why you think that's so important.
Well, there are a lot of benefits. One, the opportunity to learn from others and learn from experts in the industry, but also the relationships that you can create. Can't speak highly enough about the Young Cattlemen's, the YCC program that we all went through together last year. The friendships that we have made, the connections, the ability to pick up a phone and call somebody anywhere in the country practically to get advice or to ask for help or just to have a talk and see what comes up. It's really valuable, whether it's NCBA or I'm now involved, or I'm also involved in Texas Cattle Feeders Association, TCFA, and that getting to learn from and meet some of the other folks that are involved in that is really inspiring to see what's happening in the industry.
That's outstanding. Stephanie?
Yeah, I think making sure you can show up and have your voice heard. I think a lot of us kind of get stuck, well, I'm not that important, I'm just off this little ranch, but these organizations are membership driven and they're advocating for your interests. So if you're not showing up and advocating for what's really important to you and your family, you're doing it a disservice. And so I think that it's really important to maintain those relationships. And then the byproduct of that is all of those relationships that you build with fellow producers and the opportunities that come from that, like YCC or any of those other leadership opportunities that really help the industry as a whole become a better community.
Quentin, tell us about some of the organizations you've been involved in and why it's so important to get engaged.
Sure. So I started my involvement in organizations at the county level with our local affiliate organization, and have worked through that into the state level, and now starting to dip my feet into on the national level. And I couldn't agree more with what Stephanie said. These organizations and getting involved, you have a place to hear your voice be heard, be part of the greater voice. I've sat in so many meetings and seen somebody come in with thoughts and concerns, and it's amazing where that transgresses and how that moves forward, whether it's a bill getting thrown into legislature or something from a problem that started at your ranch, and this county somewhere and where it goes. Like Stephanie said, it is producer driven, and that's where it happens. So do not be afraid to step up and get involved, because that's how change happens. And what's that quote? Change only happens by those who show up. Right. If there's something you don't like, get involved, because this is what is directing the industry.
That's good. And let's pick up on that thought. Stephanie, I'm curious. You're all of the age, and I think Quentin mentioned it before, you're very busy. Young people, young families, trying to build a business. What would you tell other young people your age who may be hesitant and say, that's for later in my career, I don't really have time, or I don't want to get involved now, I don't have anything to add, I'll wait till I'm 50 or 60 years old and get involved. What do you say to those folks?
I would say that you don't have time to wait. It's really important to get involved now, and it can be starting small. Okay. I started at the county level at just attending meetings, and I've worked my way up to our state affiliate, and I'm now on the executive committee for Arizona Cattle Growers. And so taking the time to show up and let your voice be heard, leadership's not something that somebody's going to ask you to do. It's something that you show up to do.
Take the initiative.
And take that initiative and share what needs to be shared.
Jack, what would you say to that young person?
Well, I would say, to build on what Stephanie said, find something that's fit for purpose, but also remember, like we've talked about, there's never a good time to leave our operations. There is always something going on back at home. Yeah. But I've never come to a meeting or gone to an event or a program and then regretted that I was there and what I missed, because of the value that you get out of these organizations and attending meetings.
Yeah, it's great guidance. Quentin?
I would agree again with Stephanie. Get in when you're young. Get started right now, before maybe you have kids or before the kids get real busy, because then you're in and you're involved. Like she said, if you wait, you're too late. By the time you wait, the industry's moved, the changes have happened. Get in now, get involved, and it's all what you make of it.
What a great challenge for anybody of any age. Thank you all for that. When we come back, we'll have more insights from our panel of young producers. Stay with us.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
Mark your calendar for an important event, the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting. Cattlemen and women from across the country will gather to set policy priorities, discuss critical issues, and get a first look at the beef industry long-range plan. Don't miss this opportunity to collaborate with your fellow industry leaders to help shape the future of the beef cattle industry. The Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting, July 7th to the 9th in San Diego. Register now at ncba.org.
Welcome back to Cattlemen. As we get insights into the concerns and opportunities newer producers face in the beef industry. Jack, I'm sure you've noticed, but consumers continually want to know more about how we're producing the beef that they're eating. And I'm curious, as a young producer, what are you doing to try to address that concern?
Well, first, I think it's a great opportunity for us to share what it is that we're doing in our sustainability story about the industry as a whole. But for us specifically, two things really. I mean, we have an open gate in essence that we are happy to give anybody that's interested in what we do tours, show them around, communicate however they would like to learn more. And then we also have a direct-to-consumer small part of our business that's really grown since COVID, like a lot of those businesses have. So that gets us interactions directly with some consumers, but also at a couple restaurants locally. And so it's been a real opportunity to share with those that aren't part of the industry just how things work for us.
That's outstanding. How are you engaging with consumers?
Yeah, so we also have a direct-to-consumer business that we work a lot on, and so I would echo what what he said, but I think that it's also really important to invest in the education for producers. I think that being able to advocate appropriately, I think sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, especially with the direct to consumer and the marketing. And I think investing in our membership and educating them on how best to advocate for the beef industry so that we come across as a more united front. What an exciting time to be able to highlight what ranching is, tell our sustainability story, like let's make sure we get it right.
And there's great programs like Masters of Beef Advocacy that really equip us to talk about and broach some of those thorny issues that consumers ask us about, right? Quentin?
It hadn't been hit on, but social media. Use that. Find those good stories out there and share them. Get that out there. You might be a little shy to talk to people and tell your own story, but there's plenty of them out there. So use that to your advantage and share it on social media all over. It's a great tool. We're all doing the same thing. You know, we're all sharing our story, open gates, welcome anybody on, and we want to do that. Some people don't feel comfortable with that. So I'd take the social media approach and find them good stories and share what's going on, share the good of the industry.
I'm curious, you mentioned social media and otherwise. Do you feel like you have an advantage being the age you are in terms of communicating and connecting than maybe my generation or a previous generation?
Oh yeah, everything right here.
You're just
so quick, and you can hit so many people with that, and obviously the young generation, whether you're putting together TikToks or Reels or things like that, short little clips, catch them, and then they're interested. But this is the young generation. Everything's right here, so you can get that, and we need to keep that young generation involved.
And Stephanie, let me ask you an additional question, not only about generational, but the fact that you're a female and probably connect with other moms in different ways than these two gentlemen might. How do you use that to your advantage?
Yeah, so I think that going at it with different avenues, social media is one example. We're always in that echo chamber. An initiative that we did with the Cattlewomen is we did an influencer tour, and we did focus on moms and dietitians and influencers that had quite a bit of following that wouldn't normally fall into the ag circles. And we brought them to a ranch and showed them where their food came from and kind of put a lot of things at ease. And so going to them from that approach and that in-person connection was really impactful for them.
And Jack, what would you add quick?
I would just add that we also have the advantage of technology these days that we can use in that, maybe in a slightly different vein, but pointing people to immediate availability of beefitswhatsfordinner.com and other resources that are online to really learn more about the product and ways to use it.
That's great advice. We're back in just a moment with some final thoughts from our panel. Stay with us.
Grazing and pasture management is really the critical first step in our cow-calf operation. Without good quality pastures, good quality forage, it'd be really tough to make it with a cow-calf operation.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll be part of the nation's oldest and largest national cattle industry organization that has a professional team working in Washington, D.C. on issues that matter to cattle-producing families nationwide. Don't stay on the sidelines. Make your voice heard by joining NCBA today at the website ncba.org.
Welcome back. As we wrap up our program, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to share some of their final thoughts. Jack, let's start with you. You are the future of the beef cattle industry. Are you optimistic about that future?
I'm extremely optimistic, Kevin, and I'm really excited. We're producing the premium protein that's in the market, and we have improved the quality of that protein over the last 20, 30 years, and the consumer has really responded to that, and it's made for a really resilient industry.
That's great. Stephanie, what would you say?
Yeah, I would echo what Jack said, and I would also add in, the Western lifestyle is really cool now, and what an opportunity to be a part of that, and I'm very optimistic about the future and bringing consumers to the table.
Fantastic. Quentin, Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. Very optimistic. We wouldn't be in this if we weren't optimistic. That the beef demand is continuing to grow, and we keep opening more and more borders and going and with exports and internationally. So there's nowhere for this to go but up.
Well, with the ambition and intelligence and passion of folks like you three, our industry is in great hands. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories and your guidance with us. NCBA plays a big role in making the beef industry a viable option for young producers, and you can help by becoming a member. Just call 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Use the promo code C2C for a special offer just for our viewers. Well, that wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks again to our panel for sharing their perspective, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next week right here on RFD TV.